This right here is the brand new Sony A9 III, and I also happen to have their just announced new 300mm f2.8 lens as well. They just announced this camera a few hours ago at an event. We are now here at Chelsea Piers, putting the camera through its paces. Now, there are a ton of new features on this camera, but there's one very clear headline new feature, and that is the fact that this is the first full-frame mirrorless camera to have global shutter. Now this is a big deal because what global shutter means is the camera will expose and read out all of the pixels at once instead of reading the information from top to bottom, which is the way pretty much every camera has worked up until this point. Now the global shutter is obviously a very big deal in this camera, but the performance boosts you're getting on this are also very impressive. You are able to shoot 120 frames per second on this camera in RAW. This is fully blackout-free shooting because once again, one of the advantages to global shutter is you no longer need a mechanical shutter. So you are getting that benefit. And also there's a very cool speed boost function as well. The way they advertised it is C5, this custom button by default, is a speed boost. So what you can do is you can set your camera's burst rate to say like 20 frames per second. Then what you can do is whenever you want, you can then press the C5 button and it will then switch to 120 frames per second just while you're shooting. Holy 120. Another first that the A9 III can do compared to other Sony cameras comes in the form of its maximum shutter speed. This thing can shoot at 1/80,000th of a second, and not only that, you can sync the flash to it at any shutter speed. So you can not only sync at much higher shutter speeds than you could on many other cameras, but you can also then utilize the maximum output of the flash that you're using. And yeah, let's do one more. Now, another really cool new feature they announced with this camera is pre-capture. This is the first Sony Alpha line camera that can do this. So essentially, you can capture images up to a full second before you fully press the shutter button. And this is designed to allow you to catch moments that you may have missed otherwise if you push the shutter button like a half second too late. One other really cool benefit to having a camera with a global shutter comes in the form of flickering lights. So what you can do now with the global shutter is you essentially don't have to worry about the refresh rate of LED lights, or you don't have to worry about banding. If you ever shot in situations where you've got, say, fluorescent lights above and LED lights behind, you frequently will get weird artifacts as a result of the banding. You essentially do not need to worry about that. This camera, being a global shutter sensor, will be able to just capture what is happening in that single frame, therefore basically eliminating the need to have to ever worry about going to your settings and finding the 50 hertz or 60 hertz setting in order to get your light to not look gross. This camera, you don't even need to think about it. Now, the benefits to having a global shutter obviously extend to the video performance as well. This camera has kind of the same video specs you would expect from a high-end Sony camera. It can shoot 4K 60 that is oversampled from 6K, and it can also do 4K at 120 frames per second, but with no crop, which is the first Sony camera that can do that, in a mirrorless body at least. Now, the global shutter performance is going to be very interesting because this camera can also do RAW output to an external recorder like many other Sony cameras can. So the fact that you can be recording ProRes RAW on a camera with a global shutter, 4K 120, in a tiny mirrorless body like this is very, very interesting. It's gonna be really cool to see what people can do with that. I am so much worse at ping pong at these people, it's not even funny. Now finally, you're also getting 8 stops of image stabilization in this camera, and that's just body alone. It will only improve if you pair it with lenses that are already stabilized. And you are also getting the best autofocus performance that you can get in any Sony camera. It's gotten about 96% coverage with phase detect autofocus points. So the performance of this will be top of the line, and it'll work very well when paired with lenses such as this, which is Sony's brand new 300mm f2.8 that they just launched. Now we did a whole video on this. It just came out probably a day or two ago from this recording, so check that out on our YouTube channel. And finally, along with the A9 III itself, Sony's also launching a battery grip to go with the camera. Now this battery grip, it has the exact same ergonomic design that you're getting on the A9 III itself. And the way it works now, they did say that they tweaked it a little bit. So instead of draining the internal battery on your camera as well as the battery in the grip, it will essentially treat both batteries as one large battery and drain them that way. And Sony says that you will get 15% better battery life out of this because of the way they manage it. So it'll be a more efficient way of doing it. So the A9 III was genuinely a lot of fun to play with for the very brief time that we had with it. But it's going to be very interesting to see what people do with this camera, because once again, the fact that it is the first full-frame mirrorless camera with a global shutter means that we can start to see potentially just literally photography that we have not been able to get before in previous cameras, even really high-end mirrorless ones. But I personally am looking forward to getting more time with this camera, maybe sometime in the future. And make sure to check B&H's YouTube channel and our Instagram and TikTok to see all the latest and greatest on this camera and so much more. But until next time, I am Nick with B&H. Stay creative.